Now that we have that done, we can move to the underside of the motherboard, finish up what we had left down there. What we're going to want to do is take our blue wire here, which is, as I said earlier, a little long, and we're going to fish it right down through this hole right here next to the south bridge. So we'll just route it right here, stick it down through that hole. Pull it through on the other side. Now with this one, again, we kind of want to keep it away from the power wire as much as possible. So I'm routing it on the top side of the ground. And we want to make this wire as short as we can. Okay, now again we're back to the bottom of the motherboard, and we are going to install our blue wire. I had to take the CPU X clamp off earlier, and we actually need it off in order to get to one of the solder points, because we're going to go, let me rotate this, we're going to be going right over here to the C7R112. C7R112, and that's where our CPU RST is going to solder in, and it's going to be on the inside pad closest towards the middle here. And we want to trim this wire as short as possible, remembering to keep it away from power sources again as much as possible. And just kind of figure out your routing. Take a little bit off the top. Trim the wire down. Apply some flux paste to the pad. I'll put a little extra on there. It's probably going to be a good idea to come in and apply some fresh solder to the pad. And if need, with a little extra flux paste on there, pre-tining the wire. There we go. No problem. Now there is an alternate point for this if you don't like the solder point, or if it doesn't work well for you, meaning that your console red rings or anything like that. There is an alternative solder point for it, and it's on the other side of the motherboard here. But for right now, I'm going to use this and try it out and see how it works. If it works out for me, I'll probably go through and hot glue all this wire down in several places, keeping it kind of away from these capacitors here. There's a row of them right here. Tidy it up. But anyway, now we're moving back over to the odd clamp QSB. Over here, we're going to finally hook that up. It didn't come with a wire, but you have excess wire from your orange, your blue, and your green, so I mean you can just pick another wire if you like. My blue is probably the closest to the wire length that I need, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. And what we're doing is we're going to be soldering it here at the tip of this QSB and running it up to this it's like a miniature MOSFET. I think it's a voltage regulator or some sort. Whatever it is where it goes. I didn't invent this. We're gonna come in tight here on the QSB top side. Like how my facial recognition just popped up on this here. Okay, I'm actually gonna rotate the board here. Make it easier for me to work on it. And what we're doing is we're gonna come right to this big pad here next to the 213 and put a little flex on there. Prep it for applying solder. Then we're gonna attach our blue wire. I'm using a blue wire anyway. Just one of your leftover wires. Oh, you got it stuck there. Don't forget to clean that up. We're going to move over to this component here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to solder it right to this top leg right here. And we can trim it down just a little bit. Take a little off the top again. And we're going to put a little flex paste on that leg. And apply some fresh solder to it. Nice little bead of solder on there. There we have the wire attached and ready for cleanup again. Now that we have the wire attached, we have to actually activate the odd clamp. To do this, you got to put a jumper between 3 and 1 on this these pads here. Not all consoles will require the odd clamp, but it's supposed to yield better boot times. And I'm working on a Jasper, and their recommended setting is to activate the odd clamp, so I'm going to go ahead and put the solder bridge in here. And then for me, they have a list of recommended settings to go from. And I'm working on a Jasper 16 megabit. For the 16 megabit, for what they say should yield perfect results. What I want to do on my Jasper is activate the odd clamp 1 to 3. Some consoles do require 2 to 1. This is my first one, so I'm limited experience on it. So I got my J-tag or my odd clamp option enabled. I want to turn my on-off switch here to on and set this outside one to the middle to activate the 330, 470 resistors. And then what they're recommending for me right here, this is pretty neat. there's this little jumper thing. All it is basically it bridges a connection, and you just pull it off and move it over. You got it across the middle on the side, that's a 470. If you go to the other side, it's a 330. And for me, they're recommending the 470. And so I'm going to set it up that way. And then next I got to go back to the front side. So I'm going to widen out here and come back to my cool runner. Now on the cool runner, right over here, you have some 3 solder pads. I'm coming tight on it so you can see. It's right by the power wire, 5-volt solder point. Sorry about that. Now this changes your power settings. Right here, if you go 1 to 2, it activates 1.2 volt jumper on the cool runner or R-Jtag. If you go from here to here, that's a 1.8. And for me, for my Jasper, it's recommending the 1.2. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the 1.2 on there as well. I'm just having blind faith in Xecuter's testers. They've done a lot more of these than I have. There we have it. I got my 1.2 activated. And this has to do with fine-tuning the boot times with the Raider system. Which, by the way, with the Raider system, they also recommend that you pretty much completely assemble the console, put everything in its place anyway, plug everything in, and then try the Raider system, because it alters the frequencies just by putting in the disk drive, and putting parts on it, plugging in stuff. That's all cleaned up. And the next thing I'm going to have to do for my Jasper is mess with my dip switches. Everybody's consoles is going to be different. If you're working on a Falcon or something to that effect, yours is going to be different than mine. Not by much, but especially if you're working on a Zephyr. So now I got to come over here to these dip switches. This is where my tweezers come in handy. For my so-called perfect boot times, I should have dips 4, 7, or 8 on. So I'm going to turn on 8. Well, dip 8 is going to be on regardless. And dip 7 is going to be on as well. Now, for the fine tuning, they say 4 and 5 work well for the Jaspers. So for me, my 7 and 8 is going to stay on, and then 1 through 6 is your fine tuning. And they're recommending that I try either 4 or 5 for my Jasper 16 megabit. So when it comes down to the Raider system, I'll know more what I got to do with those. And well, the same goes for the 1 to 2 or 1.2 volt increase and the 1.8 volt increase. You know, you'll know more once you actually run the Raider system. Some consoles don't even require you to put this jumper here. So, but let's go ahead and we'll deal with that in a second when we're messing with the Raider system. Let's go ahead and get our QSB ribbon cable all hooked up here. I've got my ribbon cable, and so this ribbon cable is actually going to connect to this port right here. It's going to be the middle port on the R-Jtag kit, You're going to want blue side up. This thing just pops out, extends out. And then you can stick your blue side up and stick it in there and just pinch it back shut. And you have it. And then after you do that, you can flip over your motherboard and bring it up over the edge and over here to your closed out QSB, which works pretty much the same way as the top one did. The black part just slides out. Some people who have little experience with this, you end up breaking these. But yeah, it just pops out. Again, blue side up. Stick it in there, make sure it's firmly in. And close it. You can give it a little tug, make sure it don't wiggle around. And the only thing is when you go to close up the console, you want to make sure that you get this thing out of the way of this bolt. In fact, you could probably even run it underneath the X clamp here, which I'll probably end up doing. But for the time being, I'm going to leave it right here, right as it is. Now, I do believe we're ready to move on to the Raider. So, next part is going to be on the computer. Okay, so I started reassembling the console, and I thought I better put this in there as well, showing the hookup. I did the complete install before dumping the NAND, so at this point I'm going to actually have to hook up my JR Programmer wires, which again are extremely easy to figure out because they're all color coordinated. You got blue, you got green, and you got white, and they go to these QSBs. The green one comes up to the top one, which has again a color coordinated plug on it, green as you can see. So we'll go ahead and plug our green wires in there, and then the other one's going to come over here to this QSB, the other two wires. We got blue, get it fish through here. Okay, tight quarters in here, and then of course our white one. I've got it hooked up like this because I'm going to be dumping the NAND right into the NAND and using the Raider all in the next few minutes here. So I'll just, when I stick the DVD player in, the DVD drive in, I'll just have these wires hanging over the side like this so I can get to them. And then also, so you know, I did have to extend my blue wire. I had to replace it because I cut it too short to fit underneath the DVD drive. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up the assembly. I'll be right back. Alright, now that I have that all put back together, I got my NAND wires fishing out the side. I found it was easiest to route all your wires through the middle between the SATA and the multi-strand wire for the disk drive. Next we're going to hook up our Raider wires. The Raider wires being these ones, the one with the two white ends on it. The ends are identical, and they just plug into the R-Jtag kit right here. They plug in rather firmly. There you have it. The R-Jtag Raider wires are hooked up. I got my NAND wires sitting right here. Console all put back together. There's a really cool product that they have out actually that is an internal chipboard that's soldered, or that it's all plug and play. You just plug into your NAND QSBs and run to a little board here, and then it runs a ribbon cable out, And around the back side, just like on the Demon, you had the external programming port. And it's the same thing pretty much, except for it's got the green, white, and blue plugins for the JR Programmer or NAND-X. So at this point we are ready to go hook up to the computer. I might as well hook this thing up while I'm here. The JR Programmer. Your radar wires come over here to this side. So I can toggle in just a little bit here. Radar wires come over here to this side. And make sure that you don't plug them in upside down or something silly. And they plug in firm. Very, very firm. And then your NAND-X wire, or your NAND wires plug in right here. So firm. Must be because it's brand new. And then your USB cable plugs in right here. Pretty simple, huh? Alright. We'll see you on the computer.